So good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar entitled Microsoft Teams and World-Class Telephony. Here we shall explore what is available to extend the capabilities of your collaboration tools. Next slide, please, Mark. So first of all, what I'd like to do is introduce our speakers. My name is David Smith, and I will be your host and ringmaster today. And it's my job to keep us on time with the main content lasting approximately 25 minutes. It will be followed, if we have time, by Q&A. So please feel free to use the options at the base of the screen marked Q&A as we go. Now, I will keep us to time, so if we are squeezed at the end, we will come back to you individually after the event. I look after marketing for the Xeretec group and have spent 36 years in the IT industry with various manufacturers, and the last 12 have been spent here at Xeretec. I am delighted today to be joined by two gentlemen from 8x8. The first, Andy Rule, is a senior manager in the Unified Communications as a Service, or UCaaS, global product marketing team for 8x8, based in London. He has over 30 years experience in business development, channel management, and marketing roles, and he has witnessed the evolution of the telecoms market from the early days of carrier deregulation through the rocket ride and bubble burst of the internet boom, and then onward to the emergence of cloud communications. In his current role, he leads the go-to-market activities for globalization, analytics, and integration, including 8x8's value-added solution for Microsoft Teams. Nicholas Stanich is an experienced sales engineer with over 8 years tenure at 8x8. With a background in networks, IT, and unified comms, Nick is also a Cisco certified enterprise sales engineer and brings excellent knowledge of hosted cloud-based unified communications and contact center as a service platforms, coupled with a robust understanding of related software and hardware. In his current role at 8x8, Nick is focused on supporting partners such as ourselves, helping us to deliver and explain technical issues clearly to both a technical and non-technical audience. Prior to joining 8x8 and relocating to the UK, Nick worked for two other organizations in his native Serbia. So let me crack on to talk about our agenda today. So next slide, please. Our short but beautifully formed agenda today covers our introductions, followed by me setting the scene for what we will explore. Andy Rule will then give us an overview of 8x8 and Teams solutions, highlighting some key value-added elements and some really rather clever, unique aspects. Nick will then dive in and give us a live demo of various aspects of the integrated offering using predominantly the very familiar Teams interface. I will then summarize and highlight some practical next steps. Next slide, please, Mark. So through both pre-COVID times and more importantly now, IT decision makers have been giving us feedback on the challenges that keep them awake at night. Our experience shows that there are 5 that do tend to get prioritized continuously. Next element, please, Mark. So the first is delivering better value by reducing costs or improving return on investment, or in fact, lowering the total cost of ownership. Next. The next one is about using IT to do more with less by improving productivity, helping an organization become more agile or mobile, or driving greater efficiencies. I think of this every time I use power tools compared to perhaps a spade or garden shears when I'm in the garden. The next area is around being safe in a world where we have ever-evolving cybersecurity threats, so reducing that risk. The next area is making life better for customers and users by enhancing their experience through better service, convenience, simplicity, availability, and of course, reliability. And the last area, and let's not forget this one, is about reducing the negative impact on the environment. So in short, that's cost, it's risk, experience, productivity, and environment. So on the next slide, thanks, Mark. It's interesting, in the last 2 years, we've seen, go back please. In the last 2 years, we've seen momentous change. And this has amplified or highlighted these 5 areas or these challenges. Now, IT was already struggling with infrastructure changes to accommodate customers wanting pay monthly services or as a service offerings. And along came COVID-19, driving instant change. Now, according to outfits like McKinsey, projects have been accelerated by up to 7 years and rolled out 43 times faster, which is staggering, really. Digital transformation and the need to service a new generation of remote working and communication has had a profound impact on migrating to the cloud, and pressures on IT have been more than extreme. So what does that mean on the next slide? Well, it means that these recent events have had a profound impact on the way we work. That forced everybody to go remote working. It became mandatory and a survival instinct. It hugely accelerated digital transformation, not just in migrating infrastructure to the cloud, but also the way we interact with each other on a minute-by-minute basis. So now, how do we incorporate the best of what we have taken on board, whilst making sure we leave behind all the downsides of suddenly being outside an office environment? And what does the future of hybrid work look like? Now, down the bottom there, you'll see some change drivers. We've had a desire to keep things tightly controlled in terms of cost, driving those down. We've definitely seen a massive acceleration to cloud migration. We're certainly accepting remote working in a bigger way. We've traditionally had phone lines tied to offices, whilst at the same time, we've adopted collaboration and, if you like, working capability through platforms like Teams. So we've changed the way we work. Lots of organizations are looking to rationalize office space and consolidate their fixed infrastructure. And in the background, we've got BT saying that the withdrawal of PSTN support will happen in December 2025. So on our next slide, let's have a little look at the exponential adoption of Microsoft Teams in this period, before jumping in and looking how we can influence its usefulness and its value. So you can see there's been a staggering growth in the adoption of Teams. And at the start of the lockdown, this was at nearly 900% in a short 4-month period. It became ranked as one of the fastest growing applications in history. And in 2020, it added 95 million users. It's now reached 145 million daily active users, or rising to 250 million on a monthly basis. And at last count, a few months ago, there were over 500,000 organizations using Teams as their platform of choice. And probably this will come as no surprise to anybody. There are 2.7 billion Teams meeting minutes consumed daily, which is really quite extraordinary. So let's have a look at unified communications. What can you expect on the next slide from unified communications? What are the business drivers? So the first aspect will be around total cost of ownership. You should expect to see savings of around an average of around 30% on your total cost of ownership. From your productivity perspective, the next element, please, we've got evidence which we provide to customers in business cases around the impact this will have on your productivity, not just in how you do things, but how you serve customers as well. Of course, the next area is around the experience, and not just your staff's experience in their ability to manage their workload and their communications in a more efficient way. But what does it mean for customers? And again, we can provide evidence around increases in customer satisfaction, customer retention, and certainly a reduction in customer complaints post unified communications. And we provide this kind of information for all of our customers pre-discovery and pre-acquisition and deployment of this technology. An area which perhaps isn't so readily known is around the risk. So in the UK alone, there is a cost of about £1 billion a year in something called phone phreaking. So phone phreaking is another word for hackers getting into your phone system through its IP connections and then exploiting it. Now, you might not think that that's a big issue, but the UK and Ireland rank in the top 5 in the world for phone hacking around these legacy technologies. And that can range from somebody coming into your system and programming it to make calls to premium numbers and then getting commission, through to actually accessing your network infrastructure. So it is a big area of consideration. And of course, the last area we'll touch on is the environmental impact. Now, of course, we can promote remote working in a better way. And we saw during the pandemic an enormous reduction in the carbon emissions because people weren't traveling. But we're also moving technology from on-premise to cloud, and we certainly benefit from that capability as well. So before I hand over to Andy to give us a much greater flavor, let's just have a look at our own journey and what it meant for us. And I'm going to just pull out a couple of key points here. So Xeretec did this investigation, and we identified that we would save more than 40% of our total cost of running our telecoms without looking at any soft costs whatsoever. It allowed us to also use our agents from wherever they were to take our call center calls, and it gave us greater flexibility. We could track all interactions. We could identify productivity of remote staff, and we had a wonderful integration into all of our systems, including Salesforce, ServiceNow, and Teams, which meant we were faster to respond to any customer query that we had. So I've said enough. Let me pass across to Andy to give you an overview of the solution. Andy.
Thanks very much, David. 8 is the luckiest number in Chinese culture, and you think that 88 will be doubly lucky. But in fact, 88 is the number of weeks that it's been since we all went into lockdown in March last year. If I go to the next slide. So what this means is that with all the impact that's had both on purchasing processes and on the way that people have moved to a new hybrid work model, it's not just about the new normal for businesses making investments now, it's about anticipating the next normal. The investments you make now shouldn't just be tactical, they should be strategic. Again, one of the reasons why Teams has been seen as an essential and important collaboration environment that's had huge adoption. Next slide, please. So as an established vendor in the cloud communication space, 8x8 had a number of options available to it when it was looking at Microsoft Teams and how do we integrate our own platform with the Teams environment, with the Teams user experience, because that's become almost the de facto, the preferred default environment that many organizations want to move to. And if you look around and when you're considering your choices, not only about how you deploy Teams, but then how you integrate your chosen platform or how you choose a vendor based on Teams integration, there are different approaches. There are certain solutions where they just embed a third-party dialer, their own dialer, but it's separate to Teams. There are those that will add on just a browser plugin, which kind of overrides the Teams experience. There's something called Operator Connect, which allows a carrier just to divert calls into their network. The approach 8x8 chose is something called direct routing. We'll look at not only the benefits of that, but then how we've layered on top of that capabilities that don't replace necessarily, but enhance the native Teams experience. The key thing, and the thing that we reiterate to any customer, or we do reiterate to customers, is the fact that for your investment in Microsoft Teams, your investment in that collaboration environment is all about user adoption. The more that you can retain the single user experience, the more that you can not confuse users by forcing them to go to different environments in using their applications, the faster your return on investment is going to be. Next slide, please. So let's break out what you call them, the pillars, the segments, the building blocks of what 8x8 refers to as voice for Teams. And then as we move through this, and this will just be really a summary, when you're considering your options for investing further into Teams, looking at connectivity or telephony options, these are all things that you should investigate that when you're evaluating or lining up the possible solutions. So let's go through these really quickly, and I'll show examples later. First of all, Teams is great in terms of having chat, meetings, and telephony. But in terms of advanced messaging, you don't have things like fax, you don't have things like voicemail, you don't have things like call recording. So what 8x8 is able to do through its integration, which we call 8x8 Voice for Teams, is we're able to use the platform, the established what we call XCaaS, Experience Communications as a Service platform, and deliver some of those capabilities into the native Teams interface. And what Nick will show you in the demonstration section is exactly how we've done that. What I'm going to do in the next few slides is to kind of give you a flavor and tee up what Nick is going to be showing you. It's not just about enhancing the user experience. Adoption and return on investment also depend on the communication solution being robust and effective as a business tool, as an engine that's driving the way that you as end customers, as users of technology, in the way that you engage with your customers, the experience you give those. So the other capabilities within our platform that we bring to a team solution, importantly, is around management, is around analytics, is about guaranteed service uptime. So if we move to the next slide, then we'll dig into some more details. So if we consider organizations of all sizes, you may be a domestic business, you may have satellite offices or remote employees. When you're looking at a team solution, one thing that's interesting around the telephony aspect is the calling options you have. And when you're looking at these, what we'd suggest that you do is just consider the reach of the standard calling options that are available and the SLAs that are available, and consider that how effective or appropriate those are for the reach that you're looking for. What we'd highlight as part of our solution is that we can now not only deliver call or number connectivity to over 40 countries. In 48, we can actually provide both inbound and outbound local calling with what we call PSTN replacement countries. And I've listed some of the countries where we're in a unique position compared to Microsoft standard calling services. Next slide, please. And then from the user experience standpoint, whether you're on a desktop device, whether you're on a portable or mobile device, the experience with 8x8 is all driven by a tab that we enable within that Teams experience. There's an 8x8 tab, and hopefully you'll get the slides afterwards so you can see this image in high resolution closer up. But essentially there's a submenu that appears to users, whether they're mobile or on desktop, that gives them access to some of the other capabilities I'll cover. And then from a contact center point of view, if you're running as a Teams user, you can also be as an agent. You can take calls on your Teams registered line, but those calls will come into you through a dedicated agent interface powered by 8x8. So you have the call handling powered by 8x8's long-established contact center solution. But from a telephony standpoint, it's coming in via your Teams environment. Next slide, please. From fax is probably a good quick example to show you. So what I'm showing here, and I think Nick's going to do some live demos in a second around this, is through that Teams tab, it's simply 2 clicks to pick fax, and then you can either see faxes that come into your Teams number, the fax number associated with your line, and you can view faxes that come in, and equally you can initiate new faxes directly within your Teams interface, as I'm showing here. Next slide, please. Call recording. Yes, there are bolt-on call recording solutions that you can add through third parties, which kind of act behind the scenes to provide you with an archive that you can reference. What we've added within the Teams interface is an automated recording capability. And if it's enabled for a user, that user has instant access to any call recordings for calls inbound or outbound. Again, simply through a couple of clicks through that tab and through an index of call recordings that appear. Not only that, because it's powered by the 8x8 platform, behind the scenes, the recordings themselves are managed and can be saved, backed up and archived for up to 10 years. So you have not only instant access, but you can align a retention policy to your corporate policies. Next slide, please. And then from a call handling point of view, if you're a standard business telephony user, yeah, you use Teams just to answer your individual calls. But what about if you're in a position where you have high numbers of calls coming in? The Teams interface doesn't have a native operator console. So what we've introduced is a product called Frontdesk. And Frontdesk provides what I call hybrid call handling. So it means that you can have an operator position logged into 8x8 Frontdesk, and they not only have visibility of users in the 8x8 environment, business telephony users using what we call 8x8 work, they also have visibility of contact center users. They also have visibility of Microsoft Teams users, all through the same panel. So what that means is in an integrated environment, you can combine both Teams and non-Teams, particularly if you're moving from in an environment where some users are using standard telephony licenses, some are using Teams, some are enabled with Teams telephony and some not. You can have a single aligned call handling service that treats and manages both. Next slide, please. And then contact center. This isn't just a standard bolt-on. This is a solution that's been solution verified by Microsoft as part of their integration program. And if you care to look at the Microsoft site, there are very few, in fact, none of the leading UCaaS vendors have the same accreditation, mainly because they're using third-party contact centers. So the benefit through 8x8 is that where it's appropriate, you can align Teams-based users to agents within a 8x8 powered contact center environment. And not only that, it's not just about user interface, you have the associated reporting, routing, and analytics that you would expect from what Gartner considered a leading solution. Next slide, please. And then on the analytics front, it's not just about looking at call history. What we also provide within analytics is the ability to look at call quality as well on a system-wide basis. Now, if we then look at the next slide, I think this goes into two areas just to cover briefly because we're enhancing what we can do here. Speech analytics means that it's possible for any call that's made from any user, whether they're a UC user or a contact center user, and you're able to not only as a supervisor or manager view a transcription of a call, you can also do keyword lookup and reporting, as well as employee or staff evaluation based on what's called user sentiment, where you define certain keywords and create a custom questionnaire to report upon. Next slide, please. And this is one of the key aspects of it. So really, in summary, if we look at Microsoft Teams and the capability that 8x8 offer, what we would say is if you're considering solutions, I've just come up with a simple checklist of capabilities, many of which I've covered on this call, including present synchronization, including call recording, faxes, the fact it can all be self-managed. But I've left the right column blank. So if you're evaluating alternatives, just see how your the options you're considering stack up. Next slide, please. Overall, and this is really just to bring my segment to a close, what we consider is when you're looking at rolling out a collaboration solution, it's not just about which guys have teams and which don't, the haves and have-nots, about the knowledge workers. It's how can you empower every single role in the organization with a common cohesive solution. It could be everyone has Teams, it could be everyone has a Teams interface, but only certain people have Teams-based telephony. With an 8x8-based solution, you can mix and match and apply the best solution, the best level of licensing, whether 8x8 or Microsoft Teams, to provide all these different roles with the appropriate capabilities. And I've listed some of them underneath that you can review after the event. So next slide, please. So overall, if we were to kind of characterize the 8x8 proposition overall, something for you to take away and to think about, it's all about this experience communications as a service. In the fact that 8x8 is the only cloud-based vendor that has its own contact center and unified communications services within the same common platform, within the same SLA. Why it's important for organizations like you is not only to give employees or internal users the best possible environment to do their work and be effective, it provides your customers, those external to your business, with the right sort of experience when they're trying to contact you or you're trying to contact them, regardless of the user interface. Next slide, please. And really, just in closing, this summarizing that it's all through this power of X, or the power of integration, that we've been recognized by Gartner, not only for as a UCaaS player, as a leader, and that's been 10 years running now, but then even in the contact center space, a very busy and evolving space. For 7 consistent years, we've also been recognized in one of the leading categories of that as well. And again, there's a copy of the report that you can obtain. So with that, if I go to the next slide, I'd like to hand over to my esteemed colleague, Nick, who's going to show you some of this stuff in action.
Thank you, Andy. I would like to be able to share the screen. Thank you. And I will share with you a couple of, we'll approach this from a couple of aspects. First of all, what you should be seeing on the screen is the Microsoft Teams interface. Now, many of you may be familiar with it. It is also having a dial pad on the left-hand side, which essentially means that we have an enabled telephony capability on the Teams tenant. Now, in this case, I wanted to sort of show you first the most simple way of using 8x8 to your advantage and extending that capability with Microsoft Teams without the users, for all intents and purposes, not knowing that 8x8 is behind the scenes. So you have the familiar interface in here. You will not need any additional training for your users. But the number at the bottom here is provided by 8x8. Also, you are able to make those phone calls, internal, external. They will go through 8x8 in the background, and they will allow the users to make phone calls, whether to those national or international numbers. Obviously, a big part of providing a service like this is also bundled minutes, which is part of every one of our licenses. One important thing to mention is that Teams integrations are available with every single license from 8x8, including the most basic ones. And there are also value add sort of applications with Microsoft Teams. So what you're seeing here is simply a Microsoft Teams interface with the 8x8 capability. However, each user or each IT team will be able to choose whether they wish to add additional functionality to those Microsoft Teams interfaces or capabilities that their users are able to do within Microsoft Teams. So 8x8 has built our own application within Microsoft Teams that allows us to do several things. In this case, it allows us to change call queues if we are part of multiple queues, which wouldn't be the case with native Microsoft Telephony. You also have the capabilities of viewing your 8x8 voicemails with the transcriptions. If you have any of the voicemails, they will appear here. Andy mentioned also fax capabilities. We can assign a separate number for your fax capability, and you will be able to view and send the faxes from Microsoft Teams. So really added the functionality of 8x8 Work or the capabilities of 8x8's application into Microsoft Teams. And you can do everything from a single interface. We are also able to present the call recordings for a particular user if the administrator allows for those call recordings to be viewed by the end user. Now, these are just some of the functionalities that are available today. Depending on the region that you are in, you will have additional functionality. For example, in the United States of America, you will have also SMS capabilities from here. But we are also working very hard on bringing more functionality into this value-add application within Microsoft Teams, such as Andy mentioned, Frontdesk for high-volume calls, a receptionist console, and eventually a contact center within here. So we are working hard. We have very tight relationship with Microsoft. Our presence integration is the latest from Microsoft Teams development program. So all of that is available within the Microsoft interface. It is also available with every single 8x8 license. Now, what I also wanted to show you, and Microsoft is almost famous for its inability to integrate with CRMs. Now, if you have an enterprise with a CRM of any sort, whether that be Salesforce, Zendesk, Microsoft Dynamics, HubSpot, NetSuite, whatever that might be, and they are a Teams user, the integration between them will be a very important part. 8x8 can help this. So essentially, 8x8 integrates with more than 25 different CRMs out of the box. So those integrations are included in majority of the licenses. And if you are integrating the Microsoft Teams with 8x8 and the CRM with 8x8, you will have that synergy between them. So here you can see that if we receive a phone call on Microsoft Teams, we will get the screen pop on the Salesforce instance, and we will be able to see all of the information about the customer that we are speaking to. Once we hang up the call, we will also have the capability of popping the call log and push that call log back into Microsoft Teams as a history of the call. So these integrations seem very simple, very trivial, but they can be a great sort of catalyst to the efficiency of the agents and see all of the calls being logged without the human interactions. These are just some of the CRMs that we do integrate with, and Microsoft Teams will integrate with everything that 8x8 integrates with. Finally, I would like to show you some of the supervisory functionality, and particularly that would be analytics. So there are many ways that we can report in 8x8, depending on the type of license that you choose, whether you have a contact center capability, whether you are looking just at unified communications. And all of these analytics will, again, much like they would report just on 8x8 applications, they will report in exactly the same way for Microsoft Teams or using 8x8 through Microsoft Teams. All of the reports are interactive. You can pick and choose your criteria that you wish to report on. There are 17 different pre-made reports and in 6 different categories. And also there is a very important piece there. So there are APIs, open APIs, free APIs from 8x8 that will allow you to extract the information from the analytics platforms and show those in maybe Microsoft BI or Tableau or whatever that third-party reporting suite may be. So even if you wanted to present this data in your CRMs, for example, or further Microsoft unified sort of ecosystem and show those interactions in or analytics in Power BI, you are able to do so. However, the 8x8 worked really hard in making these reports very intuitive. We will also allow for detailed reporting, downloading of those reports, scheduling those reports to go to emails, and also providing a call quality reports for every single one of the calls. The ring groups and call queues summaries will allow you even for live dashboards or live statistics, not just historical reporting. I would like to finish this with this piece and hand over to David. That's okay. David, I believe you're on mute.
Thank you very much. So next slide, please, Mark. We do have a question which is about ACT, about integration. So I just wonder, Nick, if you could just prepare that in background. So look, I just wanted to thank Andy and thank you, Nick, for some fascinating insights into what can be achieved when you combine 8x8 with a platform like Teams. So I just wanted to summarize by posing a few questions. I've failed in my attempt to keep us on time, so I do apologize. But a couple of questions. If you've started to think about deploying call plans with Microsoft Teams, it's great. You've started the journey. But hopefully you can see that there is a more compelling and a fuller proposition that gives you the best of Teams, but also the best of the telephony capability of 8x8. If you've been reviewing or planning a review of your telephony, so you might be thinking about cloud telephony because of perhaps PSTN or perhaps your switch is coming to the end of its life, then now perhaps is a good time to engage. Probably the one that's driving most people is the need to deploy something for remote workers to give us a more hybrid world where calls can be answered on any device anywhere. But those additional benefits of perhaps the CRM integration, your call center, your help desk, bringing that all together to have a unified, streamlined interface, we've certainly found ourselves has been really powerful, and it's helped us deliver a better service for our customers. So, if you are thinking of any of those things, next steps is do engage with us, please. We'll certainly offer advice, guidance, and hopefully support. We always go out of our way to try and build a solid business case and work with customers to combine their information with all the market stats and information to give you something that really stands up in a board environment and makes sense and give you positive outcomes. So just wanted to finish up with the last slide, which is really just the obligatory logo slide. There are many well-known organizations that have already taken this journey with 8x8. So lots of experience out there. Now unfortunately we are out of time, so we won't be able to answer questions. We will come back regarding ACT. I'll actually ask Nick in a second if he could respond, but I did promise to keep us to time. We'll be sending out a copy of the slides together with a recording of this webinar to everybody that attended, so please feel free to share with colleagues. Nick, can I answer that question? ACT?
Absolutely, I will be very quick about that. There are no ACT integrations out of the box or pre-made. However, it is a CRM that we worked with before, so our professional services is able to build a custom integration for this CRM. So yeah, if we would need to scope it out and have a further conversation, but absolutely possible, but does not come out of the box or pre-made.
Okay, thanks, Nick. So look, on behalf of Xeretec, 8x8, Andy, Nick, and myself, I'd really like to thank you, the audience, for your time today. I know right now it's really precious. I hope it was worthwhile and beneficial for you. I just want to wish you, first of all, a very early Merry Christmas. Let's hopefully we can get there without too much change in the world. Hope you keep safe, hope you keep well. and hopefully we will see you all very soon. So thanks for coming today.